So guys, do let me know if I'm live and then we can begin. Hi Aryan. Great. Can you hear me perfectly? Is everything fine? Hi Aryan. Great. So guys, today we'll try to understand the Nimzo Indian, and some of you might know how important this opening is, because um, usually what happens is that against d4, uh, most aggressive players, most dynamic players prefer knight f6, because the thing is that with d5, even if after c4 you play e6 or if you play c6, if white wants a draw, it's very difficult for black to win this because the system is very solid, but it's not very dynamic and there are less chances for black to win. Hi Pratik. So, and hi Sahil. Great, thanks for letting me know. So it's very difficult for black to win, and if let's say Carlson is playing black against some IM, so he doesn't want a very solid position. Thanks, Panani. Thanks for letting me know. So he wants some dynamic position where he has some chances. There are a lot of complications, and he can try to win. And that's why many players will play knight f6 against you. And against this, the best move is obviously c4. I did kind of recommend bishop g5 in one stream earlier, but I think this is a surprise weapon that would be a great as a surprise weapon, not as your main repertoire choice. I think if you want to be ambitious, if you want to be a serious chess player, second c4 is the main move. And here black can go for two systems, g6 or e6. Now there are, of course, he can go c5 as well, and there are a few sidelines, maybe b6 he can play. We look at them some other time, but today we'll focus on e6. Now this is the most commonly played move, so of course it is the most important. Yeah, Nimzo Indian, I think every player who is every strong player, every ambitious player has tried the Nimzo Indian defense, and that's why you need to know something great prepared against it. Not at all. It's not a noob opening account for sure. It is a very important. I think if you check Carlson's database, you will find he's played the Nimzo Indian the most against 1d4, and that's why it's very important. So now knight c3 and knight f3 are two choices. Knight f3 would kind of avoid the Nimzo, and it will go into the Queen's Indian, which is a completely separate opening, I think. But I think we should not be scared of the Nimzo Indian because it does offer white amazing chances as well. Yeah, Pratik, g6 and c5. G6 would go to the Grunfeld or the King's Indian, and c5 would go into the Benoni or the Volga Benko Gambit. And I have played all of these. I have not really played g6, but I have played c5 many times in this position. So and I've also myself played the Nimzo Indian, and this comes on the board after bishop b4. So why does black play this actually? Yeah, Pratik, if you play this rarely, I think you should study this as black as well. If you want, I can, of course, come up with some sort of stream on with the Nimzo as black. But for today, we'll focus on the repertoire as white and why it is so important. So what black is trying to do, he has put his bishop here. Now, it is not sure that he'll capture on c3 because if he voluntarily does so, then white will have the bishop pair. And even though he will have the double pawns, black's dark square will be weak. As you can see, he has pushed the pawn to e6. The e7 square is already weak. Now, he will probably play d6 or d5 depending on the situation. And also, once white pins the knight on f6, there is no bishop e7. So it's difficult to break this pin. Now, there are many tactics. For example, when the queen is somewhere on c3, the white queen, black can play knight e4, where the bishop is kind of attacking the queen, and this leads to a queen trade. Yeah, Aryan, this is definitely the anti-Nimzo, but I think, yeah, actually top players prefer this because they feel that there's better chances to counteract against the Queen's Indian rather than Nimzo Indian. But I think we should not be scared of the Nimzo Indian at all. And this is a great dynamic way for black to play. But I think white also has his chances because after all, he has the bishop pair. So yeah, there are many moves. I think first of all, after knight c3, he can just transpose into the queen's gambit declined, and that way we will just be having a solid position, maybe a slight advantage. He can of course again play c5, and that would transpose to the Benoni after something like this, and that will again be something different. But once black has played this, in most cases he will go for bishop b4, because if he wanted to go for something else, he would have preferred a different move order. Hi Harshal. That's great that MS will play next season. That's great, Jaykant. So now, after black plays bishop b4, so now there are many ways for white to play. You can play e3, which is another solid system, and you can play something like knight f3, and some people even play a3, but that's not the best way. One of the best ways to play is queen c2. So basically, you prevent damaging your pawn structure. So if black were to capture here, you capture with the queen, and now you have the two bishops without any disadvantage at all, and that would be an amazing scenario for white. Aryan, it is, but I think it is very it depends on how white plays. For example, if white were to play a3 here, bishop takes, pawn takes, this will not be positional at all, because I mean he will play bishop g5, he will play e4, he will start pushing up for a kingside attack in all scenarios, and bishop d3, and then go for e5. So something like, let's say if black were to play random moves, let's say he plays d6, bishop g5, even, I don't know, let's try to just put random moves here, knight f3, okay, I think there was some, okay, castles, e4, maybe h6, bishop h4, and you can imagine now he will go knight f3, bishop d3, e5, and there will be a full-on attack. So this can be positional as well as tactical, depending on the situation. That's why it's so interesting for black players, because it offers them many chances. It can go positional, tactical, based on what they want, and that's why it's very interesting to play both ways. Sahil, yeah, I did see Samay's diss against Sagar Shah, and it was interesting, but I think I prefer Sagar Shah's diss somehow. That was more direct, let's say. Yeah, Pratik, Pranali is a very strong tactical player. I mean, she can calculate deeply, like many moves down the line, much better than I can do. And that's why if I had to play against her, I would play some solid system, maybe the London system actually. Yeah, King's Indian is always best, Aryan. But King's Indian, the problem with King's Indian is that the preparation goes very deep. And if I'm a white player, even if I'm scared of tactical positions, I can prepare very deeply. And it's very difficult for black to sometimes, let's say, come up with enough counterplay. And white will have total control of the queen side. And that's why this is more solid. It allows you to play on both sides of the board. And King's Indian, you're going all in. You just full on attack, no going back. You win or you lose. There are no draws. So it's very risky way to play. I think if you need a must win, then King's Indian is great. But if you aren't forced, then I think King's Indian is not a full on repertoire, because people can prepare till the 30th, the 40th move in the King's Indian, and then your tactical skills might not account for much actually. So let's begin, guys. So now after Queen C2, I'm going to look at a few games today. And this was one of the first games that I played in the Nimzo Indian as white with Queen C2. So this will be kind of an interesting game to look at on how it went and how you will also face your first games. This was a game that I played in 2016 in the Dutch Open in a small town called Dieren. And my first, this was I think the fourth round or the third round. I was playing against some 2320 rated player, Colin Zeon, who's an IM I think right now. And basically he kind of was surprised in the opening itself, because I had not played this too often, and I did manage to get a great position of the opening. So now after Queen C2 he played the move D5. Now this is one of the main ways for black to play. The other main way is to play with castling, which we'll look at later. So D5 is one of the main moves, and here I would recommend the move A3, which I played. So basically you force black to decide with his bishop. If the bishop were to go back with bishop e7, then I think you simply have an extra move a3 played for free, because this just transposes into the queen's gambit declined and you have an extra move a3 played. So I think this is just an amazing version for white. So this is definitely not what black wants. Black will capture on bishop takes c3. Yeah, Pratik, f3 is what I think recently Caruana has been playing, and this is also what Nihal Sarin's opponent played in the recent Asian Cup, and he convincingly defeated Nihal. However, it is very risky, and if you like very dynamic play, of course, f3 can be a way to play. Even Anand played this against Magnus Carlsen in the World Championship, but he lost. So it's very, very complicated. And I would like to recommend Queen c2 because you're going for a solid edge with the two bishops, and I understand the system very well, so I can try to help you with that. If f3 you can require, I can also come up with that later on. So for today, we'll focus on Queen c2. And after something like d5, which he played, I played a3, simply forcing him to kind of capture on c3 and queen takes c3. Yeah, Arin, yeah, many top players play f3 nowadays. I think it was brought into fusion by Caruana, who played it, I think, at the start of this year, I think. Even in the candidates, he played it against, I think it was Wang Hao or somebody he played it, and he, or maybe some other player. He won very, it was the lower seed of the candidates he played against, and he won a convincing game. And yeah, Harshal, f3 kind of prevents knight e4, and it also kind of, let's say he wants to push the pawn to e4. So that way he wants to dominate the center, and that is also another idea. So because you cannot go e4 straight away because the knight will capture, so you kind of play f3 to kind of prepare e4 in a good circumstance. That is the basic idea. But black often plays d5 and he prevents it, but it's a very complicated system further. Yeah, Pratik, it is dynamic, but I think it's also very risky, and you can lose some spectacular games with this. So f3 is not for the faint-hearted, I think. So after d5, so now a3 takes, and now we look at the position, guys. So you have the two bishops. So what does black have for sacrificing the two bishop advantage? He basically has a development advantage. So here, one move is castles, which my opponent did not play. If black were to castle, you can see his king is safe. He has developed his king side, while white's all pieces, apart from the queen, are on the first rank, and he is far away from castling. So that is the advantage black has, but that also tells you that's a temporary advantage. So if he's not able to utilize it in the next few moves, then white will simply be better with his two bishops, and that's why if you can understand this system, you are short guaranteed an advantage. So if you can outplay your opponent in the opening, you will definitely be better because you will have the two bishops, and that will give you a long-term edge in the position. And at best, what black can do is equalize. There is no way for black to kind of try to win this, and if he does try to create some random complications, he will be suffering for the rest of the game, like my opponent suffered by trying to kind of mix it up. Yeah, exactly. Knight e4 should be prevented. Pratik is absolutely correct. So now after this, my opponent actually played knight e4. Now this is another way to play. So you attack the queen, which looks like a natural move, a developing move, which kind of attacks the queen. The queen goes back, and now c5. So black is kind of attacking the center, and this feels a bit difficult for white to meet because his king is still here and it looks awkward. But now you just capture on c5. So this is what I did. I had prepared this beforehand, and this does give black some dynamic chances, but you will see how cleverly I managed to defeat my opponent and completely confuse him. So now knight c6. So black is going for development. He will capture this pawn at any time because he can do so. So he basically wants to create some threats with knight d4, and he's going for development. Development is black's forte in this position, and to hold the position, to solidify the position, it's white's kind of thing, because if he manages to do that, then with the two bishops and weakened dark squares, you can see how weak all these dark squares are. White will be just much better. So c takes d5, e takes d5, and now e3. So this was my idea. Now I'm preparing to simply develop the bishop, develop the knight, castle. If I manage that, then I'm completely better. Harshal, development is important, but black can play knight e4 because he does not have any development issues. So that's why he can play knight e4. because the only advantage in the position he has is free development of his pieces. You can see this bishop is ready to be developed, this knight is developed, this knight is developed, he can castle on the next move. But if you look at white's position, he cannot castle, he needs at least 3 more moves. And I think it was Magnus Carlsen who said that in a complicated position, if you are 1 move from castling, you are usually fine. If you are 2 moves from castling, it's somewhat complicated, but if you are 3 moves from castling, usually it's not good. So that's why white immediately tries to castle, and that is the basic idea here. Yeah, Harshal, it's a tempo gain, exactly. It's a free tempo, so it's not really wasting time for black. And yes, b4 can be played, but I think b4 immediately would be met with a5, and that will complicate matters. And at first, white does not mind giving up this pawn. All he wants is development. That is the most important thing. So unless black forces white to play b4 somehow, then he's not going to play b4. So now my opponent played bishop f5. Yeah, Pratik, development is the number one thing. And now you can see the basic advantage. Black has all his minor pieces developed. He's threatening some sort of discover attack. And look at white's pieces. They're all on the back rank. And if he manages to develop these, he will be much, much better. So that is what white is going to do. And that is what I did. I played bishop d3. And now this position is supposed to be dynamically equal, but it's very complicated. And here my opponent played queen a5 check. So now I'm going to ask you, so what do you think white should play here, guys? So this is a complicated position, and it's not so easy to come up with the correct decision here. But I had some understanding of the position, so I did manage to find the best move. But I'm going to suggest you try and find the best move here. What do you think is the best way for white to play for an advantage and to put pressure on black? Yeah. I think openings, Aryan, I think Nimzo is very positional, but it actually depends on the sides. As you will see, this game is not positional at all. This will be very tactical. So it depends on how the players want to play actually. Okay, so Harshal said if f3. Harshal, the problem is if f3, I can go knight g3. The bishop is protected and I'm attacking the rook. So this would be lost for white already. So that's why you have to be careful. That's why we play bishop to d3. So we prevent this discover attack. And now black plays queen f5 check. So he tries to attack your king in the center. So what do you think white should play? Hello Nirav, hello Abhishek. Glad you joined in. So Nirav says b4. I will come to that, Nirav, pretty soon. So Abhishek says king e2. Abhishek, king e2 would be a decent move. But I think in this case, it's not required. There's a better move. If let's say I had no other choice, I would play king e2 because there is no way for black to attack the king because bishop g4 would lead to f3. So I think white is pretty safe here. But there's a better move here. Pratik, Nirav has come up with a very interesting move. And even though it does lose the pawn, but it's very interesting. So that is the move that I played in the game. So this was the idea here, guys, to play b4. And after knight takes b4, give up the rook as well. So my opponent captured the rook. And now I played knight e2. So yeah, Pratik, king f1 also feels solid. But I think we don't need that right now. I think b4 is very interesting. Because king f1, then it will be very difficult to castle again. That is the only problem I have with this. Black can simply castle. And again, this is a bit difficult to castle, I think. That is the only issue. Because in this position, white is already better as long as he manages to castle. So that's why we play b4. Takes. Yeah, Aryan, king f1 is possible. But I think there's a better move with b4. So knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes. And now knight e2. So if you compare, let's go back a few moves. In this position, it was black who has his complete, let's say, side developed, all his pieces developed. And now we come just a little bit further and you see how the position has changed just within like 3 moves actually. Now you look at this, white's position is completely developed. He has the 2 bishops. Now the pin, which was dangerous for white, is dangerous for black because f3 is coming and the bishop would be hanging. Black's king is in the center and he doesn't have time to castle. His queen can be trapped after castling, and suddenly this is very, very difficult for black guys. प्रतीक जॉब छोड़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. I think the thing is you have to be brave, and as I said, this can be positional and tactical based on how white and black want. So this is a very interesting opening to play with both colors, and that's why this position you can see how dynamically better for white it is. Now here my opponent understandably worried about his queen. उन्होंने queen जल्दी से भगा ली, and ये उनके लिए उतना अच्छा नहीं रहा. So what do you think, guys, white should play here? What is the best move for white here? There are many moves actually. I think there are many moves here, but there's one very simple move which gives white a clear advantage. Pratik, no, she's not laughing at your moves. I mean, this is definitely Panali's style of play, but of course she does not laugh at me. She won't laugh at anybody. Yeah, Harshal, Rook has been lost, but I think this is enough counterplay, more than enough counterplay for white. He has given up the Rook, but I think he has amazing play here. So what do you think white should play here, guys? What is the best move for white? It's a very simple way to kind of gain an advantage, and black will suffer for the rest of the game. Okay, so bishop b5 is what Harshal says. And Harshal, I think that is interesting actually. I did not think of this, but because the king has to move, maybe I will... This is actually interesting. Maybe king f8 now. But now I can maybe just move the queen somewhere or even attack the queen. Yeah, this does feel interesting, Harshal. Oh yeah, this is interesting. I think this is possible. But there's a simple move, because the problem is after bishop b5, somehow you have to worry about this discovered attack, not this discovered attack. And I'm a bit worried about this somehow. It might give black one last chance to kind of, create some tactics. So maybe there's a better move here. Okay, Nirav says bishop b2. Bishop b2 feels logical. I think this is also decent. Yeah, bishop b2 is definitely possible, guys. Yeah, this is definitely possible. And that would develop the bishop with tempo. That is definitely possible. Queen check. Okay. Hello, Siddharth. So queen a4. This I'm not so sure about, Siddharth, because of bishop d7. And now I have to move the queen back. So I'm not so sure about this. I can play bishop b5, but I can go by the queen e7. And now I don't want to exchange queens because I have the attack. So I don't want to exchange queens here. So maybe not queen a4 in this case, I think. I think bishop b5 is better. Yeah, Pratik is absolutely correct. Yeah, Pratik is absolutely correct, because f3 straight away is a great move, because there are many ways to play. I think castle is the best move here, just to develop, and then knight f4, attacking the d5 pawn. And this is very difficult with bishop b2 coming, bishop takes e4 coming. This is the Indian's best move, but I think the simple move I played f3 is also great. Yes, Abhishek, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, Harshal, he has not castled, but I think we are still not allowing him to castle. That is the best part, because his knight is attacked. So it's still kind of a simple way, a very simple way to kind of gain a clear advantage. So after queen h4, g3, knight takes, bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, queen takes b4, king f2, and now you can see, so white has 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for black. So white has 2 less pawns, but he has the 2 pieces against the rook. And because black has some serious problems, for example, he castled here in this position. So now you can imagine that there will be some serious attack. Knight f5, bishop d2, bishop c3, rook g1. It will be very difficult for black to defend this. I'm glad it's a favorite opening, Siddharth, so probably you will like it, and it'll be fun for you, and you can apply the principles in your games as well. So now, guys, after castles, you can see how it is very important for white to maintain the initiative, and it's white's move. So what do you think white should play here? Now, this is important for developing attack. This is a very important move, guys. So what do you think white should play here? You have to focus on the attack, guys, because in an endgame, with these 2 pawns, black might even be perfectly fine, even better. So you have to focus on the king here. So what do you think white should play here, guys? And the reason is also very important. There are 2 reasons to playing that move, and the one who finds both, well, you can pat yourself on the back. That is absolutely amazing. So it'll be even better if you write the move along with the reason why you're playing that move. Okay, so we'll start with bishop a3. I think, Pratik, that is great, but and that does protect the pawn, so it does make a lot of sense. But there is only one drawback here. Ideally, I would like the bishop to attack g7, and I am not so worried about the c5 pawn here, because if, let's say, black could play here queen c4, and he's exchanging queens probably, and if this happens, this pawn doesn't really help much. Black already has 3 passed pawns. He can immediately push b5 next move, you can trade, and he's pushing with his pawn suddenly. He will just play f6 to block this bishop, and this can be difficult to assess. I mean, of course, it is still decent for white, but I think it's a bit difficult to assess. So you have to kind of focus on the king directly. You cannot give black any time to align his pieces. Thank you, Rohit. Thank you, Bhavesh. Thank you for the raid. Thank you, Code Engineer. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Harshit and Rohit and everybody. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot, guys. Ojas and Manav and everybody, Sangeet. Thanks a lot, guys. It means a lot. Guys, if you are here, if you like the content, do subscribe and check out the videos. You will definitely find a lot of interesting things. Thanks, Manav, and thanks, Sangeet. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for coming and raiding. It means a lot. Thanks, guys. Yeah, Pavan, you're absolutely correct. The correct move here is knight f5, and that is the point to pressure g7 and to also prevent the move queen to h4, because all white's pieces will be on the king side, and what black wants is to play queen h4, which would pin the white's knight and which would also kind of limit his pieces. So knight f5 prevents queen h4 and attacks g7. Rook g1 is coming, and black will be very difficult to. Thank you, Manav, for subscribing. Thank you, everyone who subscribed. And if you do check out the streams. You can even watch the stream right now. You will enjoy the content, especially if you like openings, and it will be a lot of things to learn. So I hope you enjoy the stream, guys. And thank you for the thanks, Akash. Thanks a lot for raiding us. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot. So now, guys, my opponent here played rook f8. So it makes some sense because the king on g8 is trapped kind of. So he wants some escape route for the king, and also sometimes queen c5 and queen f8 can come. And now rook g1, that makes a lot of sense, just to attack g7, and now g6. So now here I played rook g4. This again attacks the queen, and here my opponent played d4. So now it's again white to play, guys. So what do you think white should play? Now there are many moves here, but there's a very solid way for white to win this now, because black is giving up another pawn. He basically does not want, for example, if he were to move his queen somewhere, let's say here on a5, I could play queen d4 and threaten mate, and that's why he has played d4. So what is the easiest way for white to convince and convert his advantage here? Okay, yeah, that's a good question, Nirav. So if he plays g6, oh, not here, sorry, g6 instead of rook f8, the thing here is that, first of all, I can of course check and capture the pawn, and because I will have e4, the knight will be very well placed there. Next, for example, let's try to play this check, king g7, knight d5, queen c5, and now you see bishop check. I think this is already borderline lost for black. I would not be surprised if after rook c1 and rook c7, let's say f6, that feels like the only move. Rook c1, queen d6, rook c7. Yeah, this looks very, very bad. So another thing is, you can still just play rook g1 and the pawn is pinned. So it might just transpose to the game as well. So either way, I think g6 does not solve black's problems, guys. So after knight f5, rook e8, these moves, rook g4, and he played d4. So what do you think white should play here, guys? Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, Pratik, that is a blunder, but there's not much he could do. I mean, in this position, there's no way to defend g6. I mean, this was forced somehow. The queen cannot come, the rook cannot defend. If the rook was on e6, he went to g6, again knight e7. So even if he had more time, there is no way to defend the pawn somehow. So he had to play g6, I think. So what now, guys? Bhavesh, I'm glad you are liking the content. So, and this is the question for you. So what do you think white should play here? It's white to play, and you have to find the best move here because you are material technically up now. So what is the most convincing, most easiest way? Because we want to avoid all counterplay. So what do you think is the best way for white to convert his win here? Okay, Harshal says rook takes d4. Now I like that, Harshal. That is uh, that okay. Knight takes d4. You mean? I think that is fine. I think you can capture with the knight. But the problem is the knight is an attacking piece, Harshal, and the rook as well. So these two pieces are already in play. So I do not want to move them unnecessarily if it is avoidable, I think. So if it is possible, you should not move your pieces which are already in good positions. And because ideally, if you could, you would like to capture with the queen and deliver checkmate on g7. So that's why maybe rook takes and knight takes is not good. So Pratik says h4. Now Pratik, the problem is that black will capture with check, and if he's giving you a free pawn, we should take up the offer. He's being helpful. We should take up his offer. He's a nice person. He's giving us a pawn. We should take it. So I think Bhavesh is absolutely correct here. Siddharth, again, bishop a3. I think we would lose the pawn. That is the problem. And this way we have to move the knight back, and somehow we are losing our initiative, I think. And this e3 pawn is very important because it protects our king. So that's why it should stay there. Here I think the best move is simply queen takes d4, guys. Rohit is absolutely correct because Pratik, it's not bad. The thing is, I'll try to compare two situations. Now let's say if black were to, let's say the rook queen was not hanging, we exchanged these two pieces. Here black has two passed pawns and white has none. White has no passed pawns here. So in this case, the queen exchange is not good for us. He has two pawns for the exchange and black is definitely, I think he's fine here. But if you compare the situation after d4, now if you capture with the queen, he's forced to capture because mate is threatened. Now you have one extra pawn and you have the passed pawn. That makes a huge difference in this position. And because the knight can settle on d6, the bishop can go to maximum places. This is a winning position for white. Okay, so Rohit says Pavan and I think Bhavesh also said ed4. I think ed4 is okay here. I think if not queen d4, I think ed4 will be the next best move, guys. This is definitely possible. I think practically maybe queen d4 is better because you just give your opponent no chances. Here I think maybe he will play next rook d8 and the game goes on. Like that is the only thing. And your king is also weak. Actually, there is also one move you have to consider, that is queen e1, which I missed for a moment. And I think the bishop is just hanging. So maybe ed4 is not really possible even. So that's why I mentioned that preventing counterplay is very, very important. Yeah, Bhavesh, you're absolutely correct because the passed pawn is strong. We don't need anything else in the position. We can win the position with the passed pawn. Yes, Pratik, you should be flexible. That is the main thing because here our opponent has realized how strong our attack is. So he's trying to block this diagonal with this pawn. So if we capture with one of the attacking pieces or the pawn, we are blocking our own pieces. So that's what he wants. But we are not allowing that. We tell him, okay, fine, you give us a pawn, but we basically take the pawn for free and we get a passed pawn. So now it's up to you. You have to capture the queen, which he does. And now you look at white's position. It's just absolutely winning. Yeah, Pratik, ed4, queen e1 and the bishop is lost. And even if the bishop was not lost, let's say the bishop was on d2 or b2 or whatever, even in that case, you should not give any counterplay to your opponent, I think. So now after this, my opponent played a5. So now you can imagine he's trying to hurry, but he doesn't have time. Knight d6, attacking the rook and attacking the pawn. So rook e7, bishop a3. Maybe having some discover attack here and also defending against this pawn advance. f6, rook g1, rook d7, rook b1, attacking b7, the weakness in black's camp. And look at black's rooks here. I mean, this is probably embarrassing. Uh, some of you who might have joined late, you might not know my opponent was rated above 2300 here. He was an FM and right now he's an IM, and I was rated only 2000 guys. So I was not even rated 2250, which is my current rating. My rating was 2016, and my opponent's rating was 2350. So you can imagine 300-point rating difference, that too in a serious over the board game in the city of Netherlands. And this was so passive for black. Just look at black's rooks, they just look terrible. And after d5, so the pawns are pushing. Rook a6, king e3, king g7, king d4. Look at my king, he's not afraid, he's headed to the center. Rook a7, and now I played c6, which is also winning. So pawn takes, rook d8, king c5, g5. He's trying desperately to do something. Yeah, Pratik, rook patli gali se nikalna chahta hai. But look at white's position here, guys. I mean, this is just amazing. Even I feel so good looking at this. So king b6. I mean, look at this position, guys. I mean, can you imagine having this position? The king is headed to b6 and it's the king who's winning the game. So that was the advantage to exchanging queens there. Thanks, Siddharth. Yeah, even I love this game. So rook a8, and now I played the final winning move, and that was c7. And then my opponent resigned here, guys. So this was the first game we today looked at, and this was interesting. And because that's where Nimzo is very interesting. You're going for an attack, you're going for positional play, you're going for something, and it gives you a lot of options, and that is very interesting for both colors actually. But in this case, I managed to win the game. So I will put up the next game now, guys. Till then, you can ask any questions if you have. I will put up the next game, guys. Yes, exactly. Everything is winning here, Bhavesh. Hello, Padmesh. Everything is winning. You can even play knight b5. You can play rook b7. That's absolutely correct. And now I can capture either way with the pawn. Next, I will go king c6, king c7, and I will queen, and I will have simply two extra pieces, and I'm completely winning here. So the only thing is, why to give up, why to exchange rooks when you can win the rook for free? Here, I will probably win it very easily. So that way, it's easy, I think. Yeah, Harshal, I think because the London system is a safe opening, but once we have a winning position, we should not take too many risks. I mean, you should take risk when the position is equal and you are desperate to win. But if you have a winning position, why take risks? Just solidify your position, uh, kind of counteract against your opponent's threats, and you will be completely winning, right? I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And now I'll put up the next game, guys. Pratik, that is one question I cannot answer, how to beat Magnus. I think nobody can answer that. So I'm really sorry, I have no answer to that question. If anybody has an answer, I think that person would probably be worth millions of dollars to the opponent team who wins the candidates. So I definitely do not have an answer. Pavan, it depends. I think it depends on the kind of mistake, because after queen a5 in the previous game, my opponent went for a tactical line. So if he had gone for a position line, which my opponent in the next game went for, it's not so serious. There are chances to kind of come back. And so it's not definitely bad for black as well. Yeah, Duda. I think even Richard Rapport has a decent record against Magnus, and even Ian Nepomniachtchi. I think these are dark horses which have a great record against Magnus. Even Wang Hao guys, actually, Wang Hao has a decent record, but of course they have not played so often against Magnus, so it's very speculative whether they can actually win against him. Guys, Aryan can answer. That is amazing, Aryan. Ah, yes. That is a great solution, Aryan. Yeah. I agree with that. Aryan OP in the chat, guys. I think you should offer that solution to whoever wins the candidate, because that is a great strategy, actually. Yeah, Aryan. That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So, guys, this is the next game. This I again played. The previous game I had played in Netherlands in I think it was July of 2016, and this game I played in December of 2016, and it was against 2350 FM, and he was also a decent player. So I was rated 2100 by then, so I had gained some rating points. But even though he was 200 plus rating points higher than me, so it was still kind of, let's say, difficult for me, but I managed to win the game convincingly. So let's have a look. And this is more positional, slightly more positional than the previous one. This will show you how interesting the Nimzo Indian is for both colors. Yeah, Pratik, even my score is even actually. And that's, I think, high five to that. Yeah, definitely that was a great suggestion, Aryan. I think that was actually a practical solution. So guys, we begin the game with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop b4. And now this is again the Nimzo. So queen c2, as we saw, d5, a3, takes. And here in the previous game, my opponent played knight e4. But now here my opponent went for castle, which is a slightly more positional line. And this makes a lot of sense because black's advantage is the development. And he basically is going for development. That makes a lot of sense. And now you can compare. Black's king side is developed. He's ready to play c5. And white's pieces are still on the initial squares. So we have to develop very quickly, guys. So knight f3. Yeah, Harshal, I will come to the light square bishop because this is exactly what black will take care of in the next couple of moves. And you will understand just now how he takes care of the light square bishop. And if you mean for white, that also we'll understand just now. Great, Siddharth. I'm happy that you'll prepare that because it's a very interesting opening, guys, even as black, definitely, for both colors. I've played as black as well, and I have a good record. I can show you that game as well if you want. So after d takes c4. So this is the idea, guys. So black basically realizes that he wants to develop this bishop, and that's why he opens the diagonal for his bishop. So dc4, queen c4, and now b6. So this is black's idea. Okay, c5 instead of d5. Definitely. Pratik, this is another line. And here I would recommend dc5. We are going to look at this in the next game. So we will come to this, definitely. The next game and the final game, which will be after this, will focus on c5 and dc5, where I managed to defeat an international master as white. So we'll come to that pretty soon. Yeah, that is definitely possible. So we were here, knight f3 and dc4. So here I think we should capture immediately. We should not wait. Queen takes c4 and now b6. So black is preparing to bring his bishop, but here he might even play to a6 to kind of gain a tempo on the queen. So now we want to castle. That is a major idea. But if we play e3, then our bishop on c1 is blocked. So that's why we first play bishop g5 in this position, and then we next want to play e3, bishop e2 or bishop d3, and then castle. So that is White's plan. If in this position he can manage that, he will definitely be slightly better. There is absolutely no doubt to it. So black has to hurry. So he plays bishop a6, not giving white any time. Shobit, I think it depends. For example, in this position, you can play e3. If white captures, of course, you will capture with the pawn. So that is definitely possible. But I think in these structures, you have a weakness on c4. What black will do is, he will play b6, bishop a6, d6, or even, let's say, knight c6 and knight a5. And he will attack your c4 pawn. And then you have to go for an attack. You just go full side for an attack. You even sacrifice the c4 pawn. And then that's a completely different way to play as white. And because black is already playing such a risky opening, I feel that black will be prepared. He must have seen the opening lines in depth. But queen c2 actually gives you more of a control over the position. It's not so easy to prepare very deeply here. And that's why it is a better system for white. e4 is not possible, Pawan, because the knight is kind of controlling the e4 square in many cases. And that's why e4 is not really possible. For example, like queen c2. Now, for example, like here e4 is obviously not possible because of knight e4. And if queen e2, let's say d5, again, the pawn is controlling the e4 square. So e4 is not really possible here. If it was possible, we would of course play e4. There's no doubt to it. So queen c2, and we were here. Now bishop g5 and bishop a6. I'm glad you understood, Shobit. I'm really happy you did. So now the thing is, you have to take care. So let's say I play queen c2 here, which is not the best move in the position. black would play knight d7. So we want to create some problems for black. So what we do is we play queen to a4. So that is a clever move here. So now knight bd7 is not possible because bishop is hanging, and knight c6 is not possible because bishop is hanging. So black is stuck. So that is the idea behind the clever move queen a4. Yeah, I think, yeah, Shubhit, yeah, exactly. That is more important. And Prateek has mentioned excellently that e4 square is very crucial. If white can manage to control the e4 square, I think the game would be pretty much over, because white will have absolute domination in the center. So that's why black is trying to control it perfectly. So now queen a4 is a clever move, guys, because it prevents the development of knight. So my opponent here played queen d7. So that is the idea. Yeah, Pratik, you can play h4, but I think it's a bit risky as of now. Okay, h4. Okay. Yeah, h4 is possible, but the problem is black hasn't weakened himself with h6 or g6. So h4 is usually best when black has weakened his king side. If his pawns are on the initial squares, I think because white is not developed, he should focus on castling and not on h4, because he doesn't have time to waste. So that's why he should focus on the development first. Yeah, that is a great question, Bhavesh. I actually should have mentioned it. Thanks for reminding me. So guys, the problem is that if you play queen b3, the best move here is considered to be sometimes c5, and this pawn attacks the pawn, protects the bishop, and later on your opponent might play knight a6 and knight c5, and he will attack the queen on b3. So he will basically gain a tempo. This is definitely possible, but it is not the best move, because the queen will be kind of, let's say, awkwardly placed when the knight lands on c5, and you might have to go back here. And that's why I think queen c2 is better, because it looks very good because you attack the bishop, but c5 is a great response here. And now the pawn is attacking the pawn is protecting the bishop, and if you capture, then the queen is misplaced, because some point bishop will go here, knight a6 and knight c5, and then you have to move the queen. So that's why maybe queen c2 is slightly better, I think. Bhavesh, I think. So b5 after queen a4, let me check. B5 here. It can be played neither, but I think this is a weakening move, because you're weakening the dark squares. So you should not play this move. Also, the bishop is kind of blocked. So you have to, you should be very careful about pushing pawns, guys, because once you push a pawn, it cannot go back. So you should always push pawns very carefully. So in this case, b5 would be bad, because of course you weaken these two squares. Next, white will go back, queen c2. He controls this square. He will play b4. He will play e3, and the b5 pawn will be weak, and the c5 square will be weak. And this, I think, will be very, very bad for black. Hi Sachin. Guys, Sachin is a friend of mine. So I have played a tournament in Malaysia with him. So he's also rated around 1900. He's a great player as well. Yeah, Prateek is absolutely correct. So that c5 is weakened, and you have to not weaken your squares, guys. So now queen d7. So what black wants is that I should capture, and then he will develop his pieces very comfortably. But now I play queen c2. So now knight c6 is something he does not want to play, because he has to play the move c5 to attack white's center, and that's why this is a great move. And now I'm also threatening bishop f6 to capture black's knight and spoil his king side position. So that's why this is bad for black, guys. And this opening itself is slightly better for white. The entire system, which many players play, is slightly better for white. So now he played c5. I capture on f6, which of course makes a lot of sense. The black king is weak. And now dc5. And if black were to capture, now this is the important position. So you will just play e3. Let's say e3. Black captures. You capture with the rook. Knight a6, let's say. King e2. And now you will play rook d1 and king f1. And because of the weakened king side and the isolated pawn on c5, white is slightly better here, guys. And I will show you the perfect piece configuration here, which is said to be the best. Let's say rook b8, rook d1, queen c6, king f1, rook c8. And now what you do is you play b3, let's say king g7, and knight d2. So this is supposed to be the perfect configuration for white. Then next rook c1, queen c4, queen g4, rook c4, and this way you can develop your pieces. And white's pawns are very safe, but black's pawns are weak. This is the configuration of pieces you can go for. But after dc5, my opponent played rook c8. You can play king f1, Pratik. In the end, it's the same thing. You have to play king e2 next and rook d1. So both are okay. Both are okay. But rook f1 makes some sense because you are at least bringing the rook to f1. But I think you can capture with the king as well. There's no harm to that. You can capture with the king. Yeah, Bhavesh, absolutely. I think that is a great term, triangulation. And that is kind of just not allowing white to develop. So after rook c8, I played queen e4. That makes some sense. The rook is hanging. And I'm also getting the queen out of the rook's attack. And I'm also bringing the queen to g4. Here the best move was probably queen c6. And this is something Kramnik has played. But my opponent here played bishop b7. Now queen c6, if he plays, you can just capture and play e3. And this position is just slightly bit better for white. And it is an endgame, so I think we don't need to really bother too much about this. So bishop b7. And now queen g4 check. Yeah, Shobit, absolutely correct, because everybody has their own style. So sometimes it can vary. Some people might prefer dynamic positions, some can prefer calm positions. But I think Nimzo Indian allows you to do both based on your choice, regardless whether you're white or black, because there's so many options, so many options. If you like attack, you can play f3 and e4. If you like position play, you can play e3. If you like to keep both options open, you can play queen c2 like in this video. So there are many options. Yeah, h4, I think I'm not so sure as of yet. But I think, first of all, we need to worry about the king, guys. The king is on e1 is a bit weak. So let's try to take care of it. So here it's check, guys. So king h8, queen h4, king g7. King g7 if he plays, then of course I have the option of taking a draw against a higher rated player. But I could have played e3 and then takes and rook d1, and I can try to build up my position. My opponent played queen e7, and now I developed with e3. Yeah, Pratik, it doesn't look satisfying, but you are a pawn up in the end game. And if you're, you should probably just exchange, because otherwise black will capture on c5 with the queen, and then he will have some irritating checks because you're not yet developed. So if he plays queen c6, I think you just capture the queen and take a free pawn. I think that makes a lot more sense. Yeah, Harshal, there is a struggle, but I think finally the bishop will come into play. So now knight c6, bishop d3. So of course, mate is threatened. And my opponent played f5, the only move. And now I just exchange queens. I mean, why not? I am a pawn up and I have a better position. So why not exchange queens? B takes, pawn takes, just king e2, rook g8, rook at g1, king g7, rook a c1, king f6, g3. Now, safeguarding this pawn. Yeah, Bhavesh, but the thing is, white has the better structure here. And if I had not taken on f6, I would have the two bishops. So white already has a long-term advantage. So it's black who has to worry about getting the, let's say, the dynamic counterplay. White is happy with a decent long-term position. He just does not want to be lost in the opening. If he survives the opening without any positional giveaways, then I think he's just better. So that's why white is absolutely solid. So rook a d8, rook g d1. So now here my opponent realized that he was probably much worse. He has some counterplay because these pawns are not really easy to push because of the open a file. But here in this position, he played the move e5. So it's your move, guys. So what do you think white should play here? I noticed this move after a couple of minutes. It took me some while, but I did find it. So it's white to play, guys. So what do you think white should play? Ananya Pandey. Okay, rook c7 is possible. Of course, rook c7 is possible. But I think I will just capture here and play e4. And I think white is even lost. So maybe rook c7 is not the best move here. There's a better move here. The idea is same, but you have to do it in a better way. Pratik, rook c7 loses a piece because bishop f3 check and e4. So you will lose a piece to a fork. Yeah, Sahil, I just saw your message. If you capture, not this. if you let's say play rook c7, bishop takes, king takes, then e4, and then you will basically lose a piece. That is the problem. So guys, try to think of the correct solution here. This is tactical. It's tactical, I must warn you, but it's very simple. It's very simple. Not at all, Pratik. I mean, everybody can make that mistake. I mean, because it looks logical. Rook to the 7th rank. It has some ideas. Try to find the correct solution here, guys. It's white to play, and you have to find the best move. Yes, of course, you can move the bishop. I think something like bishop c4 is not a bad move. And if he plays e4, you can always go knight d4. But there's a better move here. There's a better move here. You basically are winning a pawn. You're winning a pawn for free. Try to find that move, guys. I'm going to have a sip of water. Let's see who can find it first. It's tactical. You're winning a pawn, guys. You're winning a pawn for free. Try to find it. Let's see who can find it. Okay, knight h4 is possible, but I think the knight is kind of not doing much here, right? The f5 pawn is already protected, so I'm not sure what the knight is doing here, guys. A knight on h4 feels out of place somehow, because the f5 pawn is not really hanging. So maybe not knight h4, Harshal. Yeah, greedy, but I think this, yeah, Pratik, I mean, we have to be greedy in chess sometimes. If you're not greedy, you will not find the correct move. Bhavesh, you're absolutely correct. Knight takes e5 is the move. So black has to capture, and now rook c7. So that was the clever idea. You get rid of this knight, and now you basically have a double attack, and there's no way that black can defend. So bishop d5, rook e7, king f6, rook c7, rook d6, bishop c4. There's a pin here. Because I am just 2 pawns up, I just want to exchange pieces. Bishop f3. Now I had seen this tactic that he would basically win a rook, but now you can see how many pawns I have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns and a bishop for let's say I have a bishop and 4 pawns for a rook, and that is of course completely winning for white. I mean, this is just amazing. So many pawns. So king f5, bishop g8, h6, bishop c4. We'll hurry through the move, guys, because this is just clearly winning. There's absolutely no doubt to this. My opponent tried to play around a little bit, but of course this is completely lost. And here after the move bishop c4, my opponent played rook g3, but after b4 he resigned because his king has to stop the e pawn, the rook has to stop the g pawn, but who will stop the a pawn? And that's why it's completely winning. So guys, this way I won the game, and this was again another victory in the Nimzo Indian, and that's why I think this is much fun to play, and you get a very interesting opening and very interesting middle game, and of course an end game like this cannot be harmful for our health. Who was rated 2450, and that's why I managed to win. Nay, Pratik, I have also lost a few games, so it's not like I have a 100% record as white against the Nimzo. The Nimzo is an interesting way for white to play, black to play, guys. So it's very interesting. I'm going to put up the last game, guys. Just a moment. Okay, so we're ready, guys. So for the last game, and this is a game that I played in 2017. That was another 7 months after the previous game, and I played this in the Silver Lake Open in 2017, and I played it against Vladimir Minko. He's an IM from Russia, and he's rated 2450. So he's a pretty strong player, and that's why this game was a great win for me. The first round I played against Lucas Van Forest. He was at 2500. I won against him. Then I lost against an IM from Serbia. Then I managed to win this as well, so I was having a great tournament. So we'll start with the opening. Yeah, Pratik, I mean, yeah, the pieces have too many responsibilities and black cannot control all the pawns. It's just lost for black. It's in Serbia, Sahil. It's a tournament in Serbia. So now d4, knight f6, c4, e6. We come up with the same first four moves. And now d5, as we saw this. And now, guys, as you've seen, I've played some good games in this opening. So my opponent here must have seen those games, and he might have realized that my understanding of the game is very deep. Pratik, I can show more games if you want to. I can definitely show more games as well. I can even show my games as black, which I played in the Nimzo Indian. So that will also be interesting. If you want to, I can have a look at it. But right now, let's focus on this game. So here, the thing is that my opponent must have seen those games and they were very convincing. So that's why he must have tried to prepare something very deep at home. No. It's not a lake of melted silver. It's just a random name, Pratik. Nothing to do with silver actually. So now here my opponent played c5, and that is not a good move. However, it's a very sideline. It's not well known, and I did not know about this. So the thing is, usually here black plays castle, and if you play bishop g5, then there is a line c5. If you capture, then d4. So this is a pawn sacrifice, and this was something that I knew. But here you can play queen g3, and it's unclear. It's not better for black or white. It's just unclear. And that's why in this position we play knight f3 to prevent this pawn sacrifice. So now c5 does not give anything because d4 is not possible. So what black has done is he has simply prepared this pawn sacrifice one move prior. So that is basically, let's say, good for white. But because I did not know about the opening theory, maybe I did not play in the best way. So I will let you know the best way, and I will also let you know how I played. Even though I did not play in the best way, I still managed to win. So that is a great deal. So here, guys, the best way may be dc5, d4, queen g3. So maybe one way to play is queen c2, and after e5, you can play e3. So basically, you just try to break this pawn, not this way. Just try to break these pawns immediately. You're not waiting for anything. And this is another way you can play against this. And because black hasn't castle, so he's not really prepared to attack your king right now. Yeah, Pavan, this c5 can be irritating sometimes. So queen g3, because I just followed the pattern which I had seen, and I kind of played quickly to put pressure on my opponent. So my opponent here played knight c6, which is again a sideline of a sideline. So of course I had no clue about how to play here. But one interesting way is to play b4. One interesting way is to play queen g7. But I just went for the normal way, which is knight f3 to develop a piece. And now my opponent played e5. So this is a normal way. Now I played knight e5. Maybe in hindsight, maybe e4 was the best move. But this is very tactical. So I think here itself, maybe queen c2 itself is the best way. If somebody plays it against you, you keep it solid. You don't worry because he's already playing a sideline and this is not really good for black. So why kind of enter complications which he has already prepared beforehand with the computer? However, after in the game, something like this happened. I played knight e5. Should funny. Yeah, Ken deta to hai, I think, but okay, it's hard to say. So now my opponent here played queen a5, and his idea was the tactic after bishop d2 and queen takes d2, king takes d2, and knight e4. So this was his idea, guys, but fortunately for me, this is not, let's say, better for black. It's just dynamically equal. So king e1 back, knight takes. Now knight takes c6. So this was the idea. Knight takes h1 and knight takes d4. So let's try to assess this position. The first thing is that I only have 3 pawns for the rook right now. But I basically going to win this. It's not a free pawn here, unfortunately. So knight e5, he first of all has knight h5, guys. So here already after queen f3, knight e5, queen h5, queen e7. Even this is very complicated because he's already threatening knight d3 check, so you have to be careful. And this is very, very complicated, very, very complicated. And of course he also has the same thing which he played in the game with queen f5. And the best move actually here is king d1, but to play such a move, I don't think I want to play this move over the board. So I think I went for the simple line, which is solid, and we reached this position. And here I think white is slightly better, but it's not a long-term advantage. So I had to play something. My opponent played h5. I played e3. Now rook h6, and I played bishop d3. So I'm preventing rook g6, and now I want to play king f1, king g1, and capture the knight. Yeah, nobody's defending. Yeah, absolutely correct. But I think this is the fun, because he's played a sideline and nobody really knows what to play. It's very random. The position is very random because such a piece configuration, it's not so common, because you have a bishop, you have 3 pawns for a rook. That's very, very rare. So now he played h4. I played king e2, so trying to capture the knight with the rook. And after knight f2, king f2, rook f6, king g1, bishop d7, bishop e4, castles, bishop d5. So this is a very, very interesting position. And it's very hard to say who's better, because after b4, at some point, white will have some dominating pawns on the queen side. He will have a very strong bishop, or at least a very strong knight. On the other hand, the e3 pawn is weak. So it's very hard to say who's better here. I think both sides have their chances, and dynamically it's sort of balanced. So both sides have their chances here, I think. So bishop c6. So here I wanted to play e4, but after this I was worried about rook e8. And even though white is better here, I just was not so sure if I can maintain this pawn, because rook e1, rook f4 now. And here there was this move knight b5, which I actually missed. And after rook e5, knight d6. This is what I missed, guys. So that's why I did not play this. But I played bishop c6, bc6, b4. And now the knight on d4 is an excellent piece. But on the other hand, the problem for white is the e3 pawn, the weak e3 pawn. If this pawn was protected with the pawn on f2, I think white would be winning. But it's still dynamically, let's say, equal kind of position. Team now. Yeah. Yeah, Pavan, it's very messy. It's very messy. But also it's interesting, right? I mean, you get to play very dynamic positions. It's not so clear who's better. So rook e8, rook e1, rook e5, knight f3. And because I was low on time here and I was not so sure about the position, I decided to repeat the position once. So rook e4, knight d2, rook e5, knight f3. I wanted to see what my opponent will do, and it's recommended to kind of repeat the position once to check, to put pressure on your opponent, and also to gain time on the clock. So here my opponent played rook e8. He still wanted to fight for the win because he was the IM here. But unfortunately, the position is not really better for him here. So I now played h3, creating this pawn as a weakness as well now. King c7, king f2, g5, king e2, rook g6, knight d4, g4. This is a moment for you guys. So black is trying to create play. So what he wants is, let's say he will capture, play rook g2 check, and play rook a2, and he will try to capture all these pawns one by one. And because you have one less rook, it's not so clear how you can defend these pawns very easily. You might defend them passively, but then black will take over the initiative. So what is the best move in this position, guys? You have to find the move here. It's white to play. So what do you think is the best position? Pavan, no, I think you should accept these positions because they are fun to play. If you play a normal position against a higher rated player, it's very difficult to win because they have proper understanding of those positions, and they will try to beat you, and they might do so easily. If you play such positions, the point is that even they have no clue what to do, and that's why they can go wrong, and that gives you a chance to win against stronger players, and that's why you should play such positions. Jatin, you're absolutely correct. Rook f1. So white has to attack the black king. That should be the theme for white. He should not stay passive. So after f6, now I play knight f5, getting the knight to d6, which is a great square. The octopus knight, as Panali has mentioned in her stream, takes, rook g2, king d3, rook a2. As I mentioned, he's capturing these pawns, but we just go for the attack. Rook g1, rook a3, king d4, rook b3. He's capturing all your pawns, but in the end, we only need one pawn to queen. So rook g7, king b8. And here I played e4, which was not a good move. I think the best move was probably knight e7, rook d8, and king e4. This was the better way to play because you're threatening a fork, and the king cannot protect because there'll be a discover attack, and the rook cannot protect because the knight covers the square. But even though e4 is not a losing move, it's just that I was better. I have lost my advantage in this position. So he played, in its turn, played rook h3. His best move was rook d8 check, knight d6, and rook b4. And this way he would have had some chances to hold the position. But he played rook takes h3, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is your strongest pawn. You just want to push it quickly to the queening square. It makes a lot of sense. But now b5, and that was the clever idea here. Yeah, active defense. Yeah, Shobit, you're absolutely correct. Rook f1 was the correct move. Yeah, guys, I'll have some water, just a moment. So guys, now all we want is to push this pawn all the way, and we would be winning then. So takes. So now it's white to play, guys. What do you think white should play here? It's white to play. So what is your move? So you have recently played b5. Your opponent captured. So what do you think is the best move for white here? Yeah, Sahil, that was a bit lame, but okay. Acceptable. Pratik, but we don't want to capture this pawn because it will either exchange rooks or place your knight in a pin. And we just want to go for the king because we have the knight. We cannot really win a race where he has passed pawns and we have passed pawns. We have to go for checkmate and we have to focus on the strongest pawn we have. Okay, knight d6 is possible. I think this is definitely possible. However, I think there is a better move here, guys. I think there's a better move because let's say there's a better way to do things because you have to be forceful and you also have to focus on your strongest asset in the position. The strongest piece you have in the position, the piece that will win you the game, you have to focus on that, and that piece might be surprising to you. So try to focus which is the strongest piece you have in the position and look at all the pieces. Yes, Alpheus, rook b7 is hanging, so rook b7 is not possible. Knight d6 and rook b7 is possible, but the king is safe on a8. So it doesn't do too much, I think. So as many people have mentioned, Bhavesh has mentioned, Pratik has mentioned, Alpheus has mentioned, and even Jatin, c6, guys, c6. We don't care about anything else. We just want the pawn, the king, the knight, and the rook to attack black's king, and that's all that's required. So here my opponent captured bc4. So I give a check, king a8, and now knight d6. So you can see how I'm going to win a rook for free. And even after that, it's not going to be easy for black to win. So he played rook h8, and the rook was hanging. Now, what do you think is the best move for white? So this will be the final question of the game, of this game at least. And what do you think is the best way to convert your advantage? Because you can, of course, simply queen, but is there a better way to win this? Yes, yes, I think you can play rook b7 here, but I think we should just queen the pawn. I mean, that would be easier. This can be done. This can be done, of course. I think there's an easier way. We don't want to give black a chance to sacrifice his rook. For example, rook b7 here, now rook d8, and we don't want this. even if king c5, he can just capture, and then suddenly, even though we are better, it's not like he has his own pawns, so we don't want to give him any chance. So after this, c7, king a8, and now knight d6, rook h8. Now what do you think is the best move here, guys? Rook h7 is possible, guys, but I think just rook g8 and Pratik, then it doesn't solve anything. The rook will still, he will avoid, let's say, trading rooks or capturing your rooks, so he will avoid that. Okay, so I think Jatin Siddharth, you're absolutely correct. I think Jatin also meant the same thing. Okay. So I think this is the move that I played, guys. Rook d7 here is the best move. It is the best move here, guys, because the thing is, I'm threatening rook d8, and I don't want you to capture my pawn for your rook. I just want you to exchange rooks and just queen, because if I queen, the game is over. Okay, there's nothing to, yeah, I mean, there are many wins, Pratik, so there's nothing to kind of worry about, because there are many wins. I think I'm even sure this would win. This would be winning for white. I'm sure about it, and I'm sure there will be many moves. Rook h7 is also winning, because after this you can now play something else. So everything is winning, but I think the easiest way is rook d7, and there is no defense. My opponent here simply played the move rook to b3, but now I simply played rook d8, and my opponent resigned, because if he captures, I queen, and if he plays this, I capture here and queen, and this will be mate. And this was a 2450 rated opponent, guys, so you can understand how easy it is sometimes to defeat strong players. All you have to do is you have to be willing to take a bit of risk. For example, here b5, I did not even capture this pawn. I just pushed ahead with the strongest pawn I have and tried to queen it. And in fact, this pawn helped me to place my king here sometimes, and there were no checks for my opponent. So this way I managed to win the game, and this was a clear way to win. Okay, rook e7, rook h2, rook e8, takes. Yeah, king b7. Yeah, king b7, and white would be losing here. So yeah, that doesn't work, Pratik. This was the game, guys. So guys, I can end the stream here. I hope you learned something, or if you want me, I can also show you more games. It's totally up to you. You can let me know if you want to look at more games in the Nimzo, then I can open up more games, or we can end the stream. And I hope you enjoyed something. I hope you liked the games. Till then, I will open up the remainder of the games. If you enjoyed it, do let me know, guys. Okay, guys, I'll show you one more game then. Just a moment. I will show you one game. I will find it. It will take me a moment. Yeah, I found it. Just a moment. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I will show you guys. Just a moment. Thanks, everybody. I'll just show you. So this will be the next game, guys. This is the game that I played against a player who was rated the same as me. She was a player from Russia, and I'm going to just check her name. I forgot her name. Yeah, it's Paramzina Anastasia. That's her name, guys. So basically, she is a player from Russia. She was rated the same as I am, around 2200. I was back then, and she was also 2200. And I was not having a great tournament, but I did manage to win this game convincingly. So let's have a look at this game. So d4, guys, knight f6. We see the starting moves, which are the same. And now my opponent castled knight f3, dc4, queen c4, b6, bishop g5. We saw all of this and bishop a6, queen a4, and here we saw queen d7, which my opponent played, but now my opponent played bishop b7. So this is something new for me, but of course this cannot be a threatening move. Yeah, Pratik, she's not a doctor. I hope I don't know actually, but yeah, I mean, she's a chess player. Actually she won the Russian championships this year, so she is a strong player. But okay, I mean, I don't know if she's a doctor or not. So bishop b7, e3. Of course, if black is not threatening anything, you should just develop your pieces. Knight bd7, bishop e2, h6, bishop h4, c5, and castles. So now c takes d4. So this is the first question, guys. So how do you think white should capture here? This is your move. So how do you think white should capture on d4? What is the best way to capture? Alpheus, my rating is 2245. 2245 is my rating right now. I reached 2275 in January this year, and then I lost a few points, but then I had to come back from Europe and I couldn't play. So I'm still hoping there will be some tournaments pretty soon, maybe next year or early next year, hopefully. Right now we are not able to play any tournaments. If there are any tournaments, then even you guys would play. I'm waiting for the corona situation to improve, but I think that will only happen next summer or at least spring, so it's not going to happen right now. Hello Arif, you're absolutely correct. Arif and Alpheus. Jatin, I think you should capture with the queen, because the queen on a4 is kind of not doing much now, because the purpose was to kind of tempt black into queen d7, and now you're castled, so centralizing your queen is better, and the knight on f3 is already developed, so now the queen is well placed here. It is having control over the entire board. Centralization of your pieces is very important. So here my opponent played g5. Now you might wonder that this is a weakening move, but it's actually not so, not at least immediately, because white's pieces are not set up in such manner. If let's say my bishop was on d3, I had let's say a knight on c3, I had a rook on d1, then you never know where this might lead. But in this case, white's pieces are not set up for an attack, so this is okay for black. Bishop g3 and knight e4. So now my opponent wants to capture the bishop. I played rook a d1, which makes a lot of sense. Knight dc5. So now what do you think white should play here, guys? What is the best move for white? I'm going to give you two consecutive moves to find. There are many ways to play this, so there's no one clear answer, but I think what I played in the game was very interesting, so that's why I want to kind of ask you this question. What is the best way to play? Pratik, I'm glad you like it. Well, yeah, but I think you would rather not have corona and we can still manage to learn chess. I think, Sahil, I would rather not have it. So guys, basically here, hello Sanket. Sanket, queen e5 is queen e5 you mean, and I think Siddharth also mentioned queen e5 is possible, but I think the queen on e5 is a bit stuck, right? I mean, I think black will just move his queen to e7, and next he can play knight d7, he can play f6, and the queen is a bit stuck somehow. It just feels awkwardly placed on e5. I don't think that is the best move. Yeah, Alpheus, no amazing discoveries are coming, but that is what we'll prepare. We play the move b4. And here I had set a slight trap. So my opponent played g5 here because she knew that after bishop g3, knight e4, rook d1, knight c5, she will probably end up exchanging queens. There's a high chance that the queens will be exchanged, and then all of this will actually not be a weakness at all. So here I set up a slight trap. I played the move b4, and here my opponent, I think, should have captured on d4. Pranali, I'm white here, so yeah, here it's not needed. But yeah, if I'm black, I will rotate it. Yeah, no disturbances are coming, but that's what we prepare. So h4 is possible, Jatin and Pawan. Yeah, it is definitely possible. But I think the problem with h4 here is that if you play, let's say, in this position h4, I think he will capture here. And you have to capture here. And then the e3 pawn is weak. So that's why I think h4 is not good. So if black captures, you want to capture with the h pawn. So that's why the pawn on h2 is fine. So b4, knight a4. Here my opponent should have played queen takes d4, and after knight takes d4, this position is just equal, I think, because he will capture this bishop and it should be roughly equal. But this was the trap. So my opponent played knight a4. So what do you play now, guys? This is the move. So what do you play? Pratik, but if I'm showing my games with the Nimzo as white, so I will be white, unfortunately. But okay, I can show my games as black, but then it will not be with queen c2 because my opponents did not play queen c2 when I played the Nimzo as black. So what do you think is the best move here, guys? And this is the move my opponent missed. And after this move, my opponent actually took 22 minutes for the next move because she was surprised by this move. Yeah, knight a4 is interesting because she wants to get this knight to c3 and fork these two pieces. So it's very interesting. But what do you think white should play? Yes, yes, Sahil, you're absolutely correct. Queen takes e4 is not possible, Alphys, because the knight is protected. You play queen to a1. So basically, the same idea with queen e5, but you place the queen on a better square where it is looking at the opponent king and where it cannot be attacked. And now you reveal your rook's attack on the queen. So that was the idea. You can play bishop b5, Siddharth. Sorry, Pratik. But the problem here is that it's not going to do anything because I can play knight c3 and the knights are protected. In fact, this is a clear fork and I think white is worse here. So I think better is just queen a1, and that was the move my opponent missed. And she basically sank into thought. She finally played bishop d5. But now, what do you play, guys? This is again a positional move. So what do you think white should play? This is another positional move, guys. Just like queen a1 actually. Yeah, now bishop b5 can be played, but I think as of now he still has knight c3. So we need to control knight c3. So what can we do, guys? Hello, Saish. I think you mean bishop e5, and you're absolutely correct, because this way not only do we prevent any knight c3s, we also put even more pressure. You can imagine a move like bishop h8 can come sometimes. So this is very, very good for white. So black immediately hurried to play f6. Now bishop b5, and now we play the idea which Pratik and many others were saying. Yeah, Alpheus, it was a difficult move. It is difficult. Yeah, Bhavesh and Sanket, you're absolutely correct. And Alpheus used well, bishop e5. And now my opponent played f6. And I played bishop b5. She played g4. So basically, this piece is hanging, this piece is hanging, this piece is hanging. And we're just putting all our pieces in hanging squares. So I did not want to allow her to capture this way. So I played knight d2, rook d2. She captured on e5, and now I capture on a4. So queen g5. So she has to try something because her pawns are broken up. Pratik, that is not the case. There is no exam. So I'm the coolest teacher ever. There is no exam because you're not scored on this. So that way you're fine. Bishop d3. Harshal, when do you mean bishop instead of bishop e5? I think he can at least capture the bishop, and then he can play rook c8 maybe, and he will still have knight c3 and then knight e4. So that way he's saving his knight. That's what we don't want him to allow. So after these moves, he played queen g5, she played queen g5, and she wants to create some counterplay. But I play queen b2, rook f5, bishop b3. So now you can see she has weakened her king by kind of pushing these pawns. So I want to exchange this bishop, even though it's let's say not an amazing bishop, but there can be some sacrifices sometimes. There can be some moves like bishop f3, and also this protects the d file. So I just want to remove this defensive piece. So e4, rook c1, trying to activate my pieces. Now queen g7. She hurries with this move because if she plays a random move like a6, rook c7, I think this is already lost. So she immediately hurries to exchange queens. But I don't care. I capture the queen, rook c7, king f6, and now I play bishop d5, rook d5, rook d5, e d5, exchange everything. But now I win a pawn. Rook c6 check. The pawn on h6 was hanging, and now rook d6. So I basically win a pawn, and I had seen all of this. Once I played rook c1 here, I had seen all of this happening because all of this was forced. There's absolutely no way to change, and that's why I knew I was going to win a pawn. So I managed to win this endgame. We'll try to look at it quickly. Yeah, Alpheus, yeah, that is possible. Yeah. That is definitely interesting concept. Yeah, Sahil, I do like endgames. You might have seen I have preferred for the solid choices, but I think it's like if you are winning, you should always go for the solid choice. You should not complicate matters, I think. Tal mitla ke. Yeah, Pratik. So rook c8. So she wants me to checkmate me, of course. So rook takes d5 check, king f6, and g3. So rook c1, king g2, rook a1, rook d6, king f5. If king g5, I can play rook e6. So anyway, she will lose one pawn. So king f5, rook h6, rook a3, rook h5, king f6, h3. I want to get my king and push these pawns. So that makes a lot of sense. And then she captured. King takes and rook a4. So what she's trying to do is she's trying to capture this pawn and push her own pawns and try to create some sort of race. And that's why I play b5 and I prevent that completely. Yeah, beginners do prefer e4, e5, but I think there are many other ways to play. I think, yeah, Harshal, I do like positional way. Pannali is good at tactics. I am not so good, so I prefer positional play. So now rook a2, king g2, king e6, g4. I'm pushing my pawns. Rook a1, rook f5. Now the plan is to simply capture the e4 pawn. a5 takes, and now rook b5. So now the rook is also passive. So king d6, king g3, king c6, rook b4, king d5, g5, king c5, rook takes e4, b5, and we have a race, but I have 3 pawns and she only has 1. So of course I could even sacrifice the rook for the pawn at the correct moment and it would be completely winning. Chess buddy, just try to understand the concepts, why somebody is playing something. That way you will remember openings, because why, if you remember the why, it's very difficult to remember the why. It's very easy to forget the how, but it's very easy to remember the why. So try to remember why somebody has played something and then you will remember. Don't try to memorize, try to understand. Yeah, it is the Patli Gali, but unfortunately it's not enough. It's not enough, Pratik. Siddharth, NM is basically 2200 rating and IM is 2400 rating. So IM is much more difficult and you need 3 IM norms for that. So NM is basically 2200 rating. So there's a difference of 200 points. Yeah, Sahil, yeah. I'm not busy with the end game, but yeah, I mean, I think openings are important, but you need to understand them, not memorize. I think that is the thing. So rook e5, king c4, rook e8. All these moves are just kind of random because it doesn't matter too much. There are many ways to win this. So now I will just try to bring my rook on the first rank and just sacrifice my rook for the pawn, and I will win with these 3 pawns. But what I want is to push the black's king as far as it goes to have the pawns advance further. So rook b6, f4, b4, f5. You can see how these pawns are so strong. b3, now check, king moves, rook c1, b2, rook b1. So I am prepared to sacrifice it. So king takes e3. She knows if she plays this, I will simply even capture this, and after something like this, I think this is just lost with the 2 pawns. So she played king takes e3, I played g6, rook b8, king g4, king e4, g7, king e5, king g5, and yeah, rook versus 3 pawns is winning, Pratik. It's absolutely winning. It's absolutely winning. 900 rating, Sahil, actually, if you play actual tournaments, the rating itself starts from 1000. So 900 rating is technically not even a rating. So you have to work a bit to get over 1000. No, Sahil, you cannot get a title, unfortunately. The BM title doesn't exist. So you cannot get a title for sure. Yeah, Pratik, he can get it unofficially, but not officially. So that is not really possible. But I think you can work on your skills and you can definitely get the title, Sahil. So now I think white is winning. She tried some random stuff, rook b3. So if I queen, she will just check me and capture the queen. So just rook e1 check, king d6, and now king f6. So next is king f7 and g8. So rook b8, rook d1 check, and here my opponent resigned because he's completely lost. The king will have to go here, and I will just go here, and next I will queen, and this is completely lost. So I won this game as well. So this way you can understand it's kind of, it can hurry from tactics and positional play. There is no one fixed style of play here. You have to be good at both, and but it's very interesting to play. Yeah, 3 pawns are very strong. Ah, he had pawns. Okay. Yeah, it depends because the pawns are advanced or not. Where is the opponent king? It depends on all the factors actually. If let's say the opponent king is right in front of your pawns, then 3 pawns are not enough to even draw in most of the cases. But if the opponent king is very, let's say, passive on some other side of the board, then even 2 pawns can be winning for the pawns. So guys, I hope you enjoyed these games. Ashal, that is not true. I have lost many games, so I can surely tell you that it's not so difficult to lose. I am absolutely sure about that. I can show you one more game actually. Just a moment. Just a moment, guys. Yeah. So we look at the last game, guys. 100 games. I have not even played 100 games in the Nimzo, guys. So 100 games is not possible. Bhavesh, I am going to show one last game, so you can still look at it. And thanks, Sahil. So now we look at one more game, and we'll try to understand. So this is something again where I was surprised in the opening, and I did not play the best moves in the position, but I still managed to win. So I will try to and this is very quiet. This is very simple game. So it will be more easy to understand. No serious tactics here. So let's try to look at it. So we reach this position, and here in all the games we saw that my opponent played d5. Here that was not the case, so that's why I thought I should show this game. So here my opponent just castled, and after a3, again the same idea, takes. If your opponent plays d5, then it will transpose to the variations we saw. But here my opponent played d6. This is a very solid way to play. Your opponent is not really trying to take control of the center. He will probably play b6, bishop b7, and just be solid. And he will force you to find the best moves and try to force the advantage. Yeah. So that over the board is more nervous because your opponent is sitting in front of you. He's also nervous. You're also nervous, and it can be difficult. But I think it's like it's more fun to play as well because you kind of it's a serious game. You get a lot of time to think, and during the tournament, it has happened so many times you don't even realize how 5 hours have passed. Like you look out. Like I remember. I was playing a tournament in Sweden and it was snowing outside. It was 9 a.m. and it almost feels like I looked outside, it was snowing, it was 9 a.m. I looked out, it was like 2 p.m. and it was shining with full sun. So you don't even realize how 5 hours pass, and it's very, very fun to play tournaments. And once tournaments start, then definitely I can also guide you on how to play those. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, bishops are beautiful because they are long range pieces and together they operate very well. So let's continue. So here guys, bishop g5. Again, I want to develop my king side, but I don't want to lock this bishop. So bishop g5 makes sense. h6, bishop h4, knight d7, knight f3, g5. So as we discussed, black is not afraid of this in the Nimzo. So because he has a solid system. And now knight e4, queen c2, and f5. Now this looks like an aggressive system for black. But it's also decent for white. Here I just played e3, and because the knight is hanging, he cannot really play f4. So my opponent played this, and I just played knight d2. Now this is not the most ambitious move, but it's also a solid move. I just want to get rid of the bind of these knights, and I just try to get rid of these knights which are troubling me. So my opponent here capture on d2, played knight e4, queen c2. I get rid of this extra knight, and I have, let's say, less space on the king side. I just want to exchange a few pieces. So here my opponent played queen f6, and I played the move f3, forcing him to capture, takes, and this is a very solid position. I don't think white is better here, but I think white is not worse, and you can try to play on the endgame, and I did manage to win this, so definitely there are chances for white. Chess Buddy, yeah, that's an interesting video, guys. You can check it out. I kind of played the Millionaire Open in the US, and I have detailed my experience. So if you want to know about tournaments, you can definitely check that video. It will be very, very fun to look at. Chess Buddy, if you can you just kind of post that link in the chat and people can check it out. It'll be a very interesting video for people to understand how normal tournaments operate. You can post the link, Chess Buddy. Yeah, Pratik, yeah, you're right. Yeah, Saish, bishops are long range pieces, and I think you have to open diagonals for them to use them. And for example, here, Sanket, it's not necessary. It depends on the position. If let's say this was the position in front of a GM, I don't think he will calculate more than 2 or 3 moves further down the line. But if it's a complicated position, he might calculate 15 moves down the line. But that too depends. If there are many variations, then he might not be able to calculate 10 moves. But if let's say there are, let's say it's straight variation where it's a forcing variation, then you can calculate 15 moves down the line easily. Yeah, Bhavesh, you're absolutely correct. I think bishop d3 was even better. I absolutely agree. And that was the better move in the position because it also forces the same thing. And you're absolutely correct. Bishop d3 was the best move in this position. I kind of played f3, but it was not the best. I agree. You're absolutely correct. No, Carlsen cannot see 60-70 moves, guys. It's not possible. But yeah, his resolution is absolutely amazing. So after e5, I played queen c3. He took, I took, queen takes, pawn takes, and now this is a very equal position. Rook e8, king f2, and king g7. The h6 pawn was hanging. b4, a5, bishop d3, takes, and bishop d7. So now this is a very solid position of both sides. So we'll try to understand the advantages. The advantage for white is that the h6 pawn is weak, so black's king has to somehow stay there or at least keep one of his pieces passive. Another advantage for white is that somehow his pawns are on the 4th rank on the queen side and black's pawns are on the 7th rank. So he has more space on the queen side, and that is where white is trying to create a passed pawn, because usually passed pawns work well on the opposite side of the kings. So because the kings are placed on the king side, if one side tries to create a passed pawn here, it will not be effective because the king can stop it. But here, because the pawns are pushed here, so definitely it will be the most dangerous passed pawns will be on the queen side, and that's why white has the slightly better chances, because if white manages to create a passed pawn, then it might be something for white. Siddharth, thank you for posting the link. Guys, if anybody wants to understand how tournaments feel and how kind of international tournaments especially work, you can check that link out. I have detailed my experience there about the Millionaire Open, and I really loved that tournament because I played a tournament where I was sitting right next to Fabiano Caruana. I was not playing against him, but he was right there. He even saw my game for a few minutes, so it was very amazing to play there. Yeah, nobody is. No, I think he's definitely not from 30-20 for sure. वो thumbnail में ही पैसा है प्रतीक. Unfortunately, I did not win. So, okay, I think Siddharth posted. Yeah, this is one link, guys. There is one more link, I think, which is for another video. I think I will check that out for you guys. I will find that video and I will post the link so that people can check it out. I will find it. Just a moment, guys. Yeah, this is the link. Just a moment, guys. I'm going to post the link here so that anybody who wants to check can check. So this is the second link, guys. So this video will tell you how my experience at Millionaire Open went, and it was an amazing experience, to be honest, a mind-blowing experience, and you can check it out for sure. So okay, Panali is also posted. We both posted, but anyways, okay, that's great. So let's continue, guys. This is business. I think the Comedy of the Day award should go to Pratik for sure. He has come up with some funny memes or funny puns. So rook c1, king f6, rook h1, king g7. I just repeat the moves a couple of times to kind of irritate and see what my opponent will do. And now I played c5, d takes, and rook e d8. So rook h d1, king f6, bishop c4, bishop e6. And now I exchange all of the pieces and I play king e3. So this is an important moment, guys, because this looks equal, but it's not. Practically, white has the better chances, only because he has more space on the queen side and black's pawns are passive. So rook e8, king d4, and now he realizes that he heads with the king back, and now I play rook a7. So I am threatening this pawn. So rook e2, he tries to attack my pawns. So rook takes b7, rook takes g2, and now b5. Yeah, so that will check it out. It's very interesting. Well, thank you, Pratik. But I did find them funny. They were funny for sure. Nigeria boys. This. Okay. So now I am threatening b6, guys. So of course he has to play king c8, rook a7, king b8, rook a6. And now I am threatening to capture here and then book the rook. And after rook g3, rook h6, rook takes f3. We have reached the critical moment of the game So what do you think white should play here, guys? This is the moment where you have to kind of play the best move. So what do you think white should play here, guys? He's a grandmaster, Pratik, so you really will have to work hard for that. You will have to work very, very hard. Even I have, yeah, even I have not reached there. So, but I think, yeah, I mean, if everybody is a fan of Marvel. I mean, I admire Iron Man the most, I think. Yeah, Sahil, that was a good one as well. I think we have a lot of comedians on the chat today. So, so guys, what do you think white should play here? This is a very, very important moment. You have to find the best move here at all costs. So that I think c6 here would not be so great because black will play king a7 and he will put his king on b6, and you cannot really prevent this with king c5 because he has check, so he will at least have a draw if not more. So I think the c6 square is there. That is a decent move, and after this you can play c6 check, king b8, rook b, and this is also winning. So I think you have found, let's say, one of the best moves in the position. This is definitely possible. But let's say during the game I was not so tuned on, so I thought that rook h8 might not be winning because I missed this move b6, which kind of gives me a win. And also I was worried that maybe there would be some he could sacrifice the rook with the pawn and then I have to calculate and everything, even though it's of course winning. So you're absolutely correct, rook h8 wins. But I think Sahil's move is what I played. Okay, my name is also Sahil, so that makes a lot of sense. That is king d5. Rook h5 is not good, Harshal, because he will just play g4 and you're not really doing anything, and he's pushing his pawns towards the queening square. He also has some strong pawns, so you have to again focus on the king. So rook h8 was one move which wins on the spot, and the other move is basically to play king d5, and after rook d3 check, king c6. So now you use the c6 square for the king. It does not win a pawn, unfortunately, because black can play g4, guys. g4, and the pawn is protected. So it does not win a pawn because I cannot capture the f5 pawn with king e5 because the g3 pawn will queen. So this is not really possible. So I just played king here and king here. So he has to go back the king d8. And now I play the move. So what should I move here, guys? Can you find the move? This will be the final puzzle for the day. So try to find the move. What do you think white should play? The easiest way to win immediately. Pratik, but if you play king e5 in that position, you cannot capture the pawn on f5 because the pawn on g4 will queen. Rook takes f5, rook takes f5, king takes f5 and g3, and you cannot stop the pawn. So that is not really working. So what do you think here, guys? What do you think white should play? What is the easiest way for white to win here? Yes, Sahil, you're absolutely correct. I think our names and our thinkings match a lot. So b6, so pawn takes, and what do you capture with? Now it is a very, very important moment. So which piece do you capture with? Do you capture with the king or you capture with the pawn? Sanket, rook h7 is also correct, I think. This is also possible. Yes, you're absolutely correct. I was just worried that after rook c8, I will have to play b6 anyway because there is nothing else. So that's why I just played b6 immediately. But yes, rook h7 is definitely possible. So now, okay, Pratik and Siddharth have also mentioned b6. Absolutely correct. So I play b6, he captures. So what do you capture with, guys? Okay, hello Ameya, you're here today. So king b6, Sahil says king, Pratik says king. Guys, you're absolutely correct. King is important, as you already discussed. With the pawn, with the b pawn and the g pawn, the knight's pawns, the passive defense itself holds. So in this position, even if these two pawns were not there, it's still a draw, and with these two pawns black is just winning. So that's why king takes b6 was very, very important. So this is now winning, guys. So king c8, I played rook c6, king b8, rook g6, g4, c6. So now the fork is threatened. He has to do something. Rook f8, rook g7, g3, and rook b7. And now how we see how the theoretical positions are very important. We saw this in the rook endgame theoretical stream that we had, where the f and the c pawns, the bishop's pawns, are winning by force. And here my opponent resigned, because if he plays king a8, check, here, check, king c8, check, okay, king c8, check, king d6, and I capture, and I queen the next move. And if he were to play king c8, I anyway play rook a7 with the threat of rook a8, and there is no way to defend. So either way, he's absolutely lost. And after rook b7, my opponent resigned. Yeah, hello everyone. It's kind of a filled out position, and it's more of a theoretical position that we saw with the king and rook and pawn versus king and rook with the f and the knight pawns. So that was the thing we saw. And this was the way I won another game. So as you can see, I have won many games with the queen c2 system. It's because it gives me flexibility. I can also play positionally, I can also play tactically. It depends on my mood. I am not really giving black any target in the opening. I am not allowing to double my pawns, the c3, c4 pawns. And that way, it's very, very in my control on how I want to direct the game. And that's why I love this system, because it gives me advantage in the opening itself. All I have to do is develop my pieces. I just have to put my pieces on good squares, bring my king to castling, and after such a position, I will end up with the two bishops, which will help me to have a long-term advantage. Pratik, you can definitely try it. I think you definitely have some prospects of becoming a stand-up comedian. Samay reverse, okay. Reverse flash and reverse Samay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stream. I had a lot of fun. I also went through some of my games, which were kind of good memories, because I managed to win some amazing games in these tournaments. And I hope you also enjoyed some games and you learned something about the Nimzo, both as white and black. And I can, of course, come up with a stream later about how to play the Nimzo as black, but I have more experience as white, so I wanted to bring this first to you. So guys, if you liked it, do like the stream before you leave. And if you have any suggestions about which openings you would like to see covered, you can comment on the video after the stream ends, and you can let us know. And also, so that's, I think, the number one way to basically, let's say, prepare openings is with chess base. There's no doubt about it. You have to basically have chess base. There are many chess based softwares, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have chess base 14. I bought it in 2016. Panali has chess base 15. You have to buy it, but of course there are many torrents available where you can kind of download them. I cannot really recommend you to download that way, because there's a risk of viruses and everything. Or you can also borrow it from let's say some of your friends whom you might know. They can kind of lend you the software link and you can download it. I'm glad you enjoyed the stream, Sanket. Harshal, King's Indian, I think Panali can come up with a stream on that. I have not played the King's Indian. I can definitely come up with a stream for white against the King's Indian if you like that. So definitely I have a lot of experience with that. I have played many openings against the King's Indian, so I can definitely come up with that. Chess base 0. Yeah, chess base 0, unfortunately I have not seen that one. Yeah, I can wait, Pratik. I'm also posting the link for the video, which I think you should have a look to understand how tournaments work. So that way you will also kind of can look at how tournaments work. And this was an amazing tournament because there was Nakamura playing, Caruana playing, and I met all of these people actually. Actually, I was playing right here, and Caruana was sitting literally a hand's distance away, and it was amazing to kind of have this. Yeah, Caro-Can I can do. That I can do. I've played a few games in the Caro-Can. I can come up with a stream on that. And if you have any more ideas as well, you can let me know, guys. So guys, if you have any questions, you can let me know, and then we can end the stream. Yeah, guys, and also I must tell you, there's this online chess based database You don't necessarily have to buy it. You can also go online, just search chess-based online database. You will find a website where there will be all the games ever played in the entirety of chess, and you can find those games, and that will help you to kind of, let's say, um, look at the specific opening. You can choose a certain, for example, I can feed this position in that database, and it will show me all the games ever played in that, let's say, position. However, of course, not all the games that have been played on DGT boards, it will show you, and mostly it consists of top games, so you will learn a lot from those. So that I haven't seen that, because recently I have been facing some eye pain issues because of the laptop usage. So I'm just kind of limiting my laptop use nowadays a little bit. So once it gets a bit better, then I will definitely look at it. I've been waiting to look at it for a long while, but I'm facing some eye pain issues. So once it gets a bit better, then I'll definitely look at it. Definitely. Okay, Harshal, London system. So I have so many games I can literally stream for 10 hours. I have so many games in the London system. So I can definitely do that as well. Great. Yeah, Twig. Yeah. You can also download Twig, but of course you will need ChessBase to download from Twig. So at the start, I think you can all kind of go for, let's say, the online database. It's free and it's accessible all the time. It's very easy. So you can go for that. And when the tournaments start, you feel that you need it, you can also go for ChessBase later on. Pratik, I am planning to do that. Next stream will be something similar, but with a slightly changed concept. So next time I might be playing with you, or and the next stream to that will be probably on openings again. So it will be kind of an alternate stream. One stream for fun, and one stream for learning something, and that way we can keep putting out videos. I'll be playing with you next time for sure. And after that, I'll be coming up with the opening stream again. I'm not sure if it will be the London system or let's say White against the King's Indian, because uh, once you play this, you have to be prepared for, let's say, e6, knight c3, c5, which is the Benoni and the Benko, and you also have to be prepared for g6, which is the King's Indian and the Grunfeld. So once I tell you the Nimzo, I should also kind of tell you the other openings. Otherwise, you'll be stuck. You cannot play this without stress. So I might come up with first something on that, and then I will come up with something later on the London again. I don't think it improves. Yeah, it necessarily does not improve your positional chess. Playing would not improve it. It would test it. If you analyze your games later, that would improve your positional understanding. I think it's better to just focus on books and videos and streams and whatever content you have to learn, and then you can play chess 960 to test it, because once theory is eliminated, you can test your opening play. Okay, so you play knight f3, but again, this is this is absolutely fine actually. Even I play this. This is actually the London system again. So even I play this, but I think the only problem with this is that I myself have been guilty of playing this too much, and then your opponents kind of know that you play only one thing, and then they prepare against you. It's difficult to win. That is the only issue I find. It's easy to draw actually. If you want to draw, it's very easy, but it's difficult to win, and that is the issue I have with London system sometimes. And I mentioned in the video that the Queen C7 system with something like this, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to break that system. It's very equal actually. Yeah, Siddharth, I will open up the Discord pretty soon. We plan to do it very, very soon before the next Among Us stream. So it will be done very soon for sure. And as far as Dr. Chess is gone, I might come up with something, but maybe not Dr. Chess, because yeah, something similar. Let's see. Let's see. Let's try to see what happens. Yeah, we can play against on the Nimzo actually. Yeah, that is a great idea. That can be done. Let's see what happens. I myself have played e4 knight f6 actually. I have only played one game in this against a 2350 player from India, and I managed to win that. So it was amazing. I could not believe that I won with this, and in an actual game, a long game, so I did manage to win. Pratik, I cannot stream Among Us next. Actually, there's a problem. The last time we streamed, there was a copyright claim on it. Now that is not something serious, but the issue is that sometimes what happens is people kind of create fake content IDs. They kind of copyright random stuff which is not really theirs, and then that can give you a copyright issue. So like Among Us is not really some one person's property. Everybody streams it, but even then we got a copyright claim. So I just want, yeah, guys, my screen just froze for a moment, so that way I don't know what happened. My screen just froze, guys, so that is fine. So guys, I think today's stream was fun. I really enjoyed it, and Tabahi lag OP. Yeah, my screen just froze, guys, so that's why it kind of stuck for a moment. So I hope you enjoyed today, guys, and I hope you learned something about the Nimzo. And don't be afraid to play this, even right now. If let's say your opponent plays g6, just play it solid, something like knight f3, e4 and knight f3, and bishop e2 and castle. Don't worry, you can test it out, and there's no harm in testing it out. Even if you lose a few games against g6, I will come up with a stream very soon. Don't hesitate to play this over on an online chess. Rating can be recovered very easily, so you will learn something, and you can have a look. Yeah, a3 is not the move there, so you can kind of play the white against Nimzo Indian. Yeah, Siddharth, I can definitely do that. I can do that. I will also keep it in mind. So after, let's say, I cover the main variations here with the King's Indian and the Benoni and the Grunfeld, then I will definitely focus on those openings as well. Yeah, against Magnus, you have no fear. You can just play. Even if you lose, nobody will try to blame you. Okay, it's Magnus. It's fine. It's okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you should try all openings. Harshal has actually mentioned something of gold, like literally its value is in gold. Try all openings. In fact, it's mentioned that once Bobby Fischer, one of Bobby Fischer's friend, came up to him and asked him that what he should play, how he should learn chess, what is the first thing he should learn. And Bobby Fischer basically kind of handed him a book of openings and told him to completely learn all the openings. And he asked why. Then Fisher mentioned that once you learn all of this, you would never be in a structure which you don't know. Regardless of what your opponent does, you will always know how to play in any structure. And once his friend came to him after 1 month, he completed the book, and he asked, so what do I do now? Then Fisher mentioned that you should do this again, do the exact same book again, and do it again until you know all of it. And that's how important openings can be. And more important than memorizing the moves, the structures. For example, once black plays g6, the structure will be completely different than once black plays the move e6. So knowing these structures is very important. Pratik, playing the candidates in 10 years, hypothetically it is possible. If you give up everything else, every pleasure, if you divert 10 hours every day to chess, I think it's definitely possible. But you cannot have any luxuries, anything else to do in life. All you have to do is play chess, practice chess, practice chess, practice chess, and then I think it is definitely possible. Yeah, Harshal, I will follow a similar order. I think you also mentioned, yeah, London also. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I will follow a similar order. Let's see what happens. I think first I will focus on the King's Indian as well, because that is important as white, because you cannot play the Nimzo, because I've mentioned you this, but you cannot play without any fear if you don't know what to do against the Benoni here with c5 and the system with g6. So I need to cover that once, and then we will focus the exact same order. It is definitely possible, Pratik. Nothing is impossible. Anybody can become a GM. Even I want to become a GM. So, and I am 28. So, anybody can become a GM. 13 is not too late at all. You look at these Nihal Sareens and Pranandas. It's very intimidating. But these guys have been play. I've actually defeated Pragnanda myself in 2014. So, and then he later on became a GM. So during that time, he did not have some extra talent or anything. It's just that He had the best coaches, he worked hard, he had the best resources, and he used them to reach the top. So anybody can do that. And nowadays, with so much information available, with so many players teaching you, so many books, so many streams, it's very easy to learn, and it's very easy to improve. Sagar Shah, Sagar Shah also became an IM late, but I think he kind of is involved so much with chess base. He has so many responsibilities. I think that is the issue. If he had more time, he would of course become a GM very easily. He's a very strong player. I actually met him in the game that we saw in the Dutch Open game that we saw. I met him there for the first time, and I kind of wrote an article for him as well. So if anybody wants, they can Google tentative players, and I can even post the link if you want. Just a moment, you can check that article out. I actually wrote it for Chess Base India. I will post that link. I think it should be searchable. Yeah, I found it. I will post the link. Just a moment. I've posted the link, guys. You can check it out. And that was an article I wrote for Sagar in 2016. Yeah, because I was staying in a tent, so that's why he named the article Tentative Players. That was a nice name. So you can check it out. And you can also check out the video where I mentioned about the tournament. So, guys, with this, I think we've had a great stream, and I'm going to end the stream. I hope you learned something. And do check out the video and as well as the article. It will kind of give you some insights on how tournaments are played. And I'm going to post both links. And then I will be back maybe tomorrow, and then we can kind of learn further. I'll just post the second link as well, just in case anyone wants to see. Yeah, you have both the links. You can check it out. And guys, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. And do like the stream before you leave. And I'll see you tomorrow, guys. So take care, and I'll see you. Bye, guys. Yeah, Pratik, that video as well. Yeah, even on an academy, Pratik. You're absolutely correct. Okay, great, guys. See you tomorrow. Bye, guys.